One of the things about making team learning work is to ensure that students understand that it's really different than anything that they've ever experienced, and to understand why it is that you're doing it and what it means to them. So on the first night, in fact, the very first activity, I go over a series of transparencies that identify my objectives and how I intend to meet them with team learning as compared to what would happen in a traditional course. You've got a syllabus, but just for explanation's sake, I always have the same 5 objectives for every course I teach. And there they are. Might comment about the relationships between them. This one is necessary for this one to occur, but in my judgment, this is the more important of the two. And if you only do this, I haven't given you much of value. So this is the more important. These two are also extremely important because those of you who are out working, and I know we've got some who are out working at this point, know that a lot of what happens in terms of people's success or failure in the organization has to do with the way they interact with people. In fact, I'm not even uncomfortable saying it's the single most important variable. So anything you can do to learn and develop those skills a little further is going to be valuable to you. I want to give you an explanation of how the class is going to work relative to a traditional way of doing things. In terms of getting the content covered, that first objective, in a traditional course, it's lecture and class discussion and individual study. And you notice I have in parentheses there pre or post class. If we're going to cover a topic in class on a particular occasion, and I say, be sure and read before you come, unless you're different than most of the students I've had, you won't really take that very seriously. And as a consequence of that, and actually the reading that occurs primarily just before the test, which in most cases is midterms and finals. And so there's not a lot of reading that goes a long way. So the dilemma for a teacher who's using a traditional model and wants to has this objective is that class discussion can't help much because it has to focus on, do they have it yet? Not on, can they use it? On the other hand, a well-done lecture course, most of you will really enjoy. If it's a really good lecture who has the material well organized, who covers the content so you can get it down, where it's interesting and it just is a real comfortable way to learn for most of us. The problem with it, really, though, is it does a very good job of the first of those objectives, but not very much with the rest. With team learning, it's a very, very different process. It's pre-class individual study, and how do I know whether or not you've studied? First thing that happens is you get an assignment. And if you'll see on the back, there's a schedule there, and it'll be illustrated by the schedule. Between now and the next class period, you'll read your assignment. First thing that happens in class next time is an individual test. You'll give me your answer sheets. And I will then give you an answer sheet for your team. You will retake the same test as a team. Lots of interesting things happen in this interaction. A lot of teaching goes on, and a lot of learning about not only content, but about yourselves and the way people interact. Then you immediately score it, and we've got our Scantron machine. We'll score it on the Scantron machine. It'll be multiple choice, true, false, so we can get it scored quickly. And then I'll post the scores on the board so you can see how you're doing relative to other groups. And then it becomes open book. And you can write appeals. And historically, I grant about a third of those appeals. And an appeal that's granted for a group counts not only for the group, but for each individual in that group. And then I'll talk about the things that remain, the questions that remain. And usually there isn't very many after you've gone through this process, especially with the open book and you're looking at appeals. So what this does is a couple of things that are really good. As without spending a lot of class time, you see it only appearing 6 times for the semester, we get the basic content covered, and it does a lot to help you build groups. In terms of getting the content, or the ability to think and use the issues and the ideas, It's in-class group and teamwork. I'll give you problems to work on, talk about them in your groups, and then we'll create a way where you can talk about it and challenge each other across teams. Also, as you see on your syllabus, there will be one individual exam that's an application exam, and that'll be the final. In terms of developing interpersonal and team skills, it's in class, but the critical thing is not only is it in class, but you'll have immediate feedback on how you're using the information that's potentially available to the group. And that's wonderful for learning about how to work effectively in a group. Is if you know doing things in a certain way helps you to do well as a group or doesn't help you to do well as a group, you can learn what to do. And that's the immediate feedback that gives that. In terms of lifelong learning, it very much is parallel to what will happen to you when you go and get into the workplace. Once you leave here, there is no one who's going to lecture to you if you need to learn something. It just isn't going to happen. It doesn't work that way in the big wide world. Okay, got one more transparency to show you. You're about 80% of the way through the longest lecture of the semester. I've taken those same words, changed the size of them to reflect how much class time is used for those activities. And what you see is a shift from learning concepts and getting exposed to concepts to emphasizing developing the ability to use the concepts, working on team skills, and learning in ways that help you to be a lifelong learner.